All right, good evening. Welcome to this webinar called A.L.I.G.N.E.D, Creating Worthy Goals. It's such a pleasure for those of you that are here live with me and for anyone watching this recording later, watching this webinar on demand later on. Just thank you so much for tuning in and being part of this conversation. So I thought I'd start by introducing myself. My name is Amber Howard, and I am a senior instructor with Procept and Title Shift. I'm also an entrepreneur. I have my own consulting, coaching, and training and development company. I have worked with clients across the for-profit and not-for-profit sectors over the last, more than 20 years. I spent a lot of my career working in information technology. I'm a certified business analyst, project manager, and change manager. And in the past 5 years, have gotten into instructing. And it really is a passion of mine to facilitate other people's learning and contribute to people in that way. So that's a little bit about who I am. I like to help create a little bit of relatability. So I'm originally from New Zealand. I came to Canada when I was 10. So I spent the majority of my life living in Canada. And what I'm really committed to is that people have the awareness, tools, and skills to be able to create the life that they want and not have to be stuck with anything. That we really get that we can create our lives and we're not at the effect. We don't have to be at the effect of any of the circumstances that we may come across or deal with in life, which is a big part of we're talking about one of the foundational elements about doing that here tonight in this webinar. So again, just from the bottom of my heart, I really love what I do, and I wouldn't be able to do that if you weren't participating either live or watching this later. So just thank you for giving me the opportunity to do that. So in this webinar, we're going to be looking at and understanding the importance of goal setting. So what is it about setting goals? Why is setting goals so important to us as human beings? What is it that goal setting provides and makes available for us? I'm going to define for you what I consider to be goals that are worthy of your life. Not in terms of like my goals and what I think your goals ought to be, but what a goal worthy of your life would be, whatever that goal is that you choose to create. I'm going to introduce you to the aligned goal assessment framework that I've created, which is going to enable you to create bigger and bigger goals in order to be able to fulfill on the things that are most important to you in your life. We're going to take some time to assess your current goals. And for those of you that are watching this webinar after the fact, I invite you to just participate and do the exercises as we go through them together live tonight. Okay, you'll have the opportunity to just reflect and inquire into the kinds of questions that we're doing here, and you can take this on in your own life. And wherever you are at with your current goals, you're going to have the opportunity, watching and participating in this webinar, to either really look at what supports you might need. If you do already have goals that are worthy of your life, you have the opportunity to maybe reflect on some of the supports that you might need in fulfilling on those goals. And for those of you who find upon reflection and participating in this webinar that perhaps your goals are not quite worthy of your life, you'll have an opportunity to do the reflection and create goals, up-level your goals. And you're also going to walk away from this time with an awareness of the kind of mindset that drives success. So you'll hear me say this a few times during the webinar tonight. So, there are those that say that success is actually 95% mindset and only 5% strategy. And I'll unpack that idea a little bit more as we go through our time together. And just to presence it for yourself while we're here, I invite you, and for those of you that are with me live, you can put in the question section, get present for yourself at the beginning of this webinar. What are some of the existing goals that you have? You can even share them here with me now. What are some of the existing goals that you have today? And I find it very helpful in life to never come from there being anything bad or wrong. So if you find yourself watching this webinar and you realize that you're not really present to any goals that you have right now, consider that that you're in the perfect place, and that there's an opportunity here for the next hour to really look at and examine what do you want to take on? What do you want to create next in your life? And maybe you find yourself somewhere in between, so you have some idea of what it is that you want to be working on in your life, but the goal is not clearly defined for you, which is also just perfect. You'll have an opportunity to look at that this evening as well. I was just looking at, one of the participants has a goal of creating a nonprofit organization, a life partner, and flamenco dancing. I love that. I love the idea of dancing through life. Thank you so much for sharing that. So in this webinar, we're going to start our journey talking about why goal setting matters. And then we're going to talk about what's beyond SMART. So for those of you, some of you watching this may be familiar with an existing framework, which I think is great for certain situations, which is SMART. We're going to get into that. We're going to talk about it, and then we're going to talk about what's beyond SMART. What is it that perhaps SMART doesn't provide that a new framework for goal setting could? We're going to talk about 3 different types of goals, and you're going to have an opportunity. You're going to have an opportunity to assess where your goals fall within these 3 types of goals. I'm going to introduce you, as I promised, to my A.L.I.G.N.E.D framework, which is a new and what I believe to be not necessarily better framework for assessing goals, but a different framework, and a framework that will enable you to assess whether your goals are really going to cause the kind of expansion in your experience of life and your satisfaction of life. You'll have the opportunity, as I said, to assess your current goals, and we'll go through a goal setting exercise. Then we'll talk about, again, that mindset piece, setting yourself up for success. And then we'll do a wrap up and take some question and answer and talk about some next steps that you could take on in the new space that you're in at the end of our time together. So why does goal setting matter? Here we have a quote from Earl Nightingale, who's one of the grandfathers of the personal development movement. And Earl Nightingale says that success is really nothing more than the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. This means that any person who knows what they are doing and where they are going is a success. Now you could look for yourself that perhaps that definition of success might be a little bit different than definitions of success that you may have engaged with or thought about in the past. So to understand why goal setting matters, first we have to really unpack and understand what the purpose of a goal is. Now, for some of you watching this, maybe you can just get present to yourself and put in the chat like what you might think the purpose of a goal is for you right now. And I'm going to offer you what I believe the purpose of a goal is based on my years of studying both personally and professionally, many different frameworks. So consider that for many people, they believe that having a goal is about achieving some kind of result. So I want a new car, I want to go on a vacation, I want a romantic partner. So the purpose of the goal inside of that frame is the attainment of the result itself. And there's nothing wrong with that definition or understanding of what goals are. And consider that the results are the outcome. You achieve the results, yes, by pursuing the goal, But the real purpose of a goal, one could say, is to cause an expansion in who we know ourselves to be. Wallace Wattles, in a book, The Science of Getting Rich, written in 1903, for those of you that may be familiar with The Secret, Wallace Wattles says that the goal of all life, that all life seeks expansion and growth. One of my favorite plants is a hosta. I live in a beautiful apartment building in Toronto, Ontario. And throughout the grounds, there are just tons of hostas. And one of the things that I've noticed about the hostas on the grounds where I live is that every year they get bigger and bigger, and the plants will continue to grow until they've reached whatever physical boundaries may exist. If there are no physical boundaries, then they will keep continuing to grow and grow and grow. All life seeks expansion. Well, what if the purpose of a goal wasn't in fact to achieve the results, but it was to cause us to continually expand and grow in life? See, if you think about it, without a future to live into, we are often, if not I would assert always, stuck reliving our past. Human beings are the only species on the planet that have built-in goal-seeking mechanisms. You could almost say that our brain is a goal-seeking mechanism. And that whether our goal-seeking mechanism is set to cause us to have what we want or we don't want in life is a function of what we think and what we say about our lives. So if the purpose of all of living things is to grow and expand, and if you try on, not like you have to accept anything I say is true, but if you try on that it is through the setting of a specific type of goal, which we're going to talk about in a moment, it's through the setting of a specific type of goal that we cause ourselves to expand as human beings. Then why goal setting matters is because it is the vehicle, the mechanism by which we can continue to grow and expand in life. So I mentioned earlier that some of you, and we're going to get to those types of goals in a minute, but I mentioned that some of you may be familiar with a framework for assessing goals and objectives, and in the world that I spent a lot of time in, business analysis, also requirements, that in order to make sure that you have a suitable goal, objective, or requirements, that they should meet the threshold for SMART. Well, what does SMART stand for? Well, good goals and objectives on this framework are specific. They're clear and concise and easily understandable by anyone who would read them. So they're free of any kind of jargon or technical speak. Suitable goals, good goals, you could say, are measurable. So you can quantifiably, numerically measure what it is that you're out to accomplish. And you may not measure it just quantifiably in terms of numbers. You may also measure your goal or objective qualitatively. So in terms of some experience that you would look to get or have others get upon the completion of the goal. Suitable objectives and goals are achievable. So in order to pass this threshold, we must know or believe reasonably that we can accomplish the goal or the objective. Suitable goals are relevant to what we're out to, what matters to us, relevant to if you're looking in the context of an organization, goals and objectives ought to be relevant to the vision or the mission or the core work that is being done by the organization. So the goals ought to be relevant. And the final letter in this framework, T, is that good goals should be time-bounded. So we know we're clear about the period of time in which we are going to achieve said goal, whether it's in a month, a quarter, by the end of the year, by the end of next year. Now, I want to be clear, I think S.M.A.R.T is a great framework for assessing objectives, which are kind of like the tangible actions or deliverables that you're going to create stemming from a goal. S.M.A.R.T is great for requirements when building technology solutions or new processes or any other things that you would, understanding what your requirements are. What I think is available beyond where I think S.M.A.R.T falls short is in defining the kind of goals that I'm speaking about here tonight, goals that I would call worthy of your life. S.M.A.R.T goals don't cause, because in order to meet this threshold, the goal or the objective must be achievable in our mind. S.M.A.R.T goals and objectives do not cause an expansion in who we know ourselves to be. So they don't necessarily cause us to have to grow beyond our current capabilities. So what is a goal worthy of your life? This may be an interesting way of wording it for you, but what is a goal worthy of your life? And why I say it might be interesting for some of you watching this recording or here with me tonight is often when I hear people talk about their goals, there seems to be this thought that we have to be worthy of the things, people, and experiences that we desire. And I disagree with that. We only have one life. However much time we have on this planet, I believe that each of us is extraordinary and that our goals ought to be a reflection of how extraordinary we are. So when we talk about, and we're going to spend quite a bit of time for the rest of the evening, talking about what it is to be aligned and what it is to have goals worthy of your life, it is to have goals that are connected to our true desires, the things that we most want in life. Having a goal worthy of your life is the kind of goal that pulls you forward. So wherever you are right now, whether you're joining me live or you're watching this at some later date, I invite you to just look for yourself. Are the goals that you've created for yourself as miraculous as you are? So before we jump into and I introduce you to the aligned framework that I've created, we're going to talk about these 3 different types of goals. And I want to acknowledge always where the source of my work is not my own. So this framework for looking at goals and assessing goals comes from the work of Bob Proctor, who has been in the personal development world for over 6 decades and is really a master inside of, manifestation and thought and having your thoughts create the life that you live. So in his work, Bob defines 3 different types of goals. He says most people, when they start with goal creation, start with type A goals. These are the kinds of things that we know how to do because we've already done them. So think for yourself right now about a goal that you've already achieved. Think about a goal that you've already achieved. It could be buying a certain kind of car, or maybe going on a vacation. Perhaps one of the types of goals that you've achieved is, getting a certain level in your education or buying your first investment property or your first home. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with type A goals. And I want to be clear about this, and I'm going to hear me say this a lot throughout the evening. There's nothing wrong with any of these goals. It's just that certain types of goals will cause us to expand and other types of goals won't. And when we're here to have a conversation tonight about having goals that are worthy of our lives. And I should just mention, as we're going, if anyone has any questions or any feedback as I'm going through, please make sure you put that in the questions so I can either address them as I go if there's time, or we can talk about them at the end. So type A goals are all about achieving things that we know how to do. And whereas these kinds of goals are not bad goals, there's just no growth attached to them because they don't require us to achieve any new awareness, any new skills, or cause us to have to expand beyond what we know we're already capable of. So once people move beyond type A goals, they typically move towards type B goals. So type B goals are the kinds of goals that we think that we can do with the right strategy, if the planets all align in the right way. I think that I can accomplish this goal. The challenge presented by type B goals is that there is no inspiration in a type B goal. Type B goals are not the kind of goals that require us to think new thoughts, be innovative, grow, and there's no inspiration in a type B goal. They don't cause us to want to leap out of bed in the morning. So then that leaves type C goals. And type C goals are the things that we really want, and often the things that we don't know how to accomplish. The things that we don't know how to accomplish. Type C goals are the kind of goals that make us a little bit nauseous. They're the kind of goals that scare us a little bit because they involve some kind of risk, or they involve us having to give up things that we think we know about life, about ourselves, and about what's possible. So I'll give you an opportunity a little bit later when we look at assessing your goals to determine, and you can be thinking about this now as we move through the next part, where would you assess your goals at? Are you like type A goals, type B goals, or type C goals? So I created the aligned framework to give people a new way of assessing if their goals are in fact worthy of their life. It is a tool to check in with yourself, to know if your goals are going to move you forward to a life of your own design. As I said at the beginning of this webinar, that is one of my biggest commitments in life, is that every human being gets to live a life that they've created based on their own design, and that they're never stuck, that people are never stuck with anything. This framework that we're going to explore will give you an opportunity to assess either existing goals or to look at creating goals in a way that will move you forward inside of my commitment for people. So the first letter in A.L.I.G.N.E.D we're going to talk about is I'm saying that a goal worthy of your life is an authentic goal. So you could ask yourself, is my goal based on what I truly desire? I'm in the process of writing a book right now that talks about how many of us create our lives based on other people's measures for success and happiness. And that we are born into families and cultures and peer groups that all have, and sometimes competing definitions of what success and happiness are supposed to be. I call them inherited yardsticks. If you remember from school, for those of you, I might be dating myself a little bit, where teachers used to have a yardstick that they used to measure things in the classroom. In order to understand if the goal is worthy of your life, I suggest that part of what's required is for you to have clarity on your purpose. Why were you created? If every living thing is created for a purpose, even mosquitoes, although I've yet to discover what the purpose of a mosquito is for myself, if everything was created to fulfill a purpose, then what is the unique purpose to which you were created for? Does your goal move you closer to a life that you love? On a scale of 1 to 10, how pleasurable is pursuing this goal? A wise friend of mine once said that it cannot just be the vision that brings us pleasure, the vision that we're here to fulfill on. It must also be the daily activities that we take inside of fulfilling on that vision. Because really, you could spend your whole life accomplishing your purpose. And by the time you're 50 or 60 or however old you are when you did that, perhaps on your deathbed, you may not have had a lot of fun and pleasure along the way. So aligned goals are authentic. They represent your true heart's desire for yourself and your life. Aligned goals are liberating. They leave you freer in some aspect of your life that's important to you. So you could ask yourself, in what areas of my life does this goal give me greater freedom? Is it my financial life, my financial well-being, or my spiritual well-being? Maybe it's my environment, where I live, the kind of lifestyle that I live. In some way, in your relationships, Is there some greater sense of mental freedom that you get as a result of pursuing this goal? Are you more freer around how you spend your time and the kinds of activities that you are doing in your day-to-day life? And you could ask yourself the question, what is available on the other side of having and experiencing greater freedom in this area of my life? Now, you may have noticed that I ask a lot of questions, or I invite you to inquire into a lot of questions. I do that for two reasons. One, because I'm a philosopher at heart. And two, because I believe that the quality of the questions that we ask gives the quality of our life. I know that for myself, for much of my life, I did not ask quality questions. I also believe that as much as getting answers to our questions can be satisfying at times, and it is, that it is in fact the inquiry and the discovery and the expansion that gets caused in the inquiry that is where our growth happens. When we're in the inquiry of something is where we must confront maybe some truths about ourselves, about the way we see life, limiting beliefs, patterns of behavior that don't align with what it is that we say we want. So I ask a lot of questions because I believe that it's in the answering of those questions, the exploration of those questions, and then whatever answer that you arrive at, that your growth and expansion happens. So aligned goals, goals worthy of your life, make you freer. Goals worthy of your life are inspiring to yourself and to others. So does your goal cause you to leap out of bed in the morning because you are so excited? Because you're so excited to be taking the actions that you're taking day in and day out in the pursuit of a goal worthy of your life. Now, for some of you watching this webinar, you might be, people are going to be in many different spaces engaging in this conversation. You could be right now pursuing certain things in order to be able to make ends meet, support yourself financially, and you could be inside of a conversation that I can't pursue the things that are really important to me right now, that will happen someday, one day. I invite you to consider that perhaps you're not emotionally present to, or the goal that you've set for yourself isn't big enough. That it's not, in fact, a C-type goal. That there could be some bigger goal for you, or more heart-centered goal. Maybe not bigger, because bigger, we're going to talk about this a little later, bigger and smaller is kind of relative to the individual. It doesn't exist in nature. It's all created in language. But perhaps that there could be a goal that is more centered to what your heart really desires, that you've yet to discover yet. Consider that at the end of the day, what has most people say that they're tired, too tired to connect, too tired to be in relationship with other people, is that they have drained their spiritual energy all day long, certain kinds of energy all day long, forcing themselves to take actions that don't fulfill them. One of my mentors once said that each of us has enough energy in our pinky finger. Like if you look at the actual energy stored in a human body, that we have enough energy in our pinky finger to light up a city block for a week. That if you're constantly with the experience or saying that you're tired in your life, that it's not that you're tired, you're just not tapped into your desire. So you could ask yourself at this point in the conversation, what is the experience of life, myself, that I'm having? And if you're in this conversation looking to discover a goal worthy of your life, what are the kinds of activities that light you up, that leave you energized? Goals worthy of your life, aligned goals require growth. They will cause growth. So you could ask yourself, does my current goal or set of goals require me to have to attract new tools, awareness, even people, partnerships, and skills? Am I left expanded as a result of the achievement of my goal? Does my goal cause growth not just for me, but for those in my life around me? Does my goal require me to give up knowing how? Novel is a way of assessing whether your goal is new for you or not. You want to identify what type of goal you have. Is it a type A, type B, or type C goal? And again, I want to stress that there's nothing wrong with going after something you've already achieved. It just, if you loved going on vacation in a certain spot like Cuba and you want to do that again, there's nothing wrong with going to Cuba on vacation for a second, third, fourth, fifth, or even sixth time. We just wouldn't define this as a goal worthy of your life. And remember that this is not about goals being bigger or smaller than other people's. This is not about comparing your goals. Whatever is new for you may not be new for other people around you. This is not about having bigger, better, more things than the person beside you or your neighbor. Each of us is on a unique journey in life, and having novel goals is about what is unique and novel and new to us as individuals. Aligned goals are enlivening. Does your goal cause you to be more excited, interested about your own life? Does your goal cause an increase of joy and aliveness where you are? Does your goal naturally cause you want to share it with other people? And I'll give you an example of this from my own life. So yesterday I just booked a trip to go out of town overseas back home to New Zealand, which is, as I said, where I'm from. I haven't seen my father in 6 years. And with COVID and everything that's happened over the last 18 months. And it's going to be a 2-month-long working holiday. I have no idea right now how to make it all work, to work my job, to keep all of the commitments that I have to myself and to others over those 2 months when I'm going to be living in a place that's 16 hours in the future. And this goal leaves me excited. I want to share it with other people. I want to be in discussion with other people about it. So does your goal leave you excited to enroll other people in what it is that you're creating in your life? And finally, does your goal scare you a little? Does it require you to dig deep on your courage? Because let's be honest, expansion is at times or can be confronting. So does your goal cause you to have to dig deep on your courage? There's this myth that exists in culture of this idea of human beings being comfortable or standing still. And if we look at what I said earlier, that all human beings, all life exists to expand and grow. We look at plants or other animals. You could try on that we are either moving forward or we are in fact moving backwards, that there is no standing still. Goals worthy of your life will be confronting and a little scary at times. But what's interesting to note, and you can look for yourself, that the experience of being excited and or afraid feels very similar, if not the same in the body. And given that we get to keep creating and reframing our experience in life, you could choose to reframe that experience of fear as one of excitement. So now I'm going to take a moment to assess your current goals. So I like to use this framework of 8 different areas of well-being. Your goal likely falls into one or more of these categories. So it could be around your physical well-being, right? How your experience of being in your body, how you eat, how well you're rested, how well you take care of yourself. It could be around your intellectual well-being. So are you expanding your mental intellect? Are you studying? Are you gaining new skills and awareness at whatever level you want for yourself? It could be around your emotional well-being. Do you have practices that help you regulate your emotions and deal with what all human beings deal with in the living of life? Your spiritual well-being, which is related to, it's not necessarily religious, and it could be, but do you feel like you have a purpose in life in which your activities in life are aligned to living that purpose? Do you have practices in life that fill you up spiritually, whether they be meditating or prayer or being in community, perhaps being in nature for some people? What's the level of your emotion? Your goal could be related to your environmental well-being. So it could be about the existing house that you live in right now, or the way that house looks, how organized it is, the kind of people that you have in your environment. But is your goal related to your environmental well-being? Is your goal related to your financial well-being? So this is everything from how much money you have in the bank to right now, to how much money comes and goes into your accounts, how well off you are financially. And I'm going to remind you again that there is no perfect answer to any of these. Each of us is a unique human being, and we get to say for ourselves what we want the level of satisfaction in every area of these lives to be. There would be no 2 human beings that would have the exact same desire around how satisfied they want to be in each of these areas of life. Do you have a financial plan for the future that allows you to live at whatever quality of life is important to you? Your goal could be around your occupation. Are you in a career or job that you love? Are you perhaps running your own business? Is the business thriving the way that you want it to be? And then finally, your goal could be related to your social life. So this could be any of your relationships, really. Friendships, romantic partnerships, clubs that you exist in part of, volunteer organizations that you're a part of. And You may have a number of different goals that you're at work on right now. I'll remind you, the big or small is all in our perception. So you want to start by assessing which area does my goal or goals fall into. On a scale of 1 to 10, how satisfied am I with that area of well-being? On a scale of 1 to 10, how much desire do I get out of the fulfillment of my current goals? Are my goals type A, B, or C type goals? And if you're joining me live, you could put those in the chat. What can you see out of the conversation that we've had so far about the current goals that you have? So when you're going through this, you could do a brief look right now, but I invite you to go somewhere where you're comfortable. I love being out in nature, by water, but wherever a place is that you feel really relaxed. And I invite you to just have an authentic look at your current goals and assess them against the aligned framework. Are these goals that are causing you to have to expand who you know to be? We're now going to look at your goals and ask some questions about them. And you could be in a number of different places at this point in the conversation. You could be at the place where you have no goal that's clearly defined right now. So my invitation to you is to try on that as a goal-seeking being, to take the time to assess the different levels of your well-being. Look at the areas where you find yourself not as satisfied as you would like to be, not against someone else's standard for what a life should look like, but against your own. And create a goal in an area of your life where you would like to cause expansion and growth, where you're not as satisfied as you'd like to be. For those of you, upon assessing your current goals, if you discover that your goals are a type A goal, something you've achieved before, I invite you to get creative and create a new goal for your life. Perhaps you have a type B goal, a goal that you think you can achieve with the right strategy. Again, if all the right pieces fall into place, you believe that you'll achieve that goal. My invitation for those of you that identify that you have a type B goal is to either expand your goal, so push beyond the limits of what you think you can achieve in this area of your life, to create something that really inspires you. Or set a new goal entirely. If you find that you do in fact have a type C goal, your goal does cause you to not know how you're going to accomplish it, you could ask yourself at this point in the conversation, what are supports that I need in order to be able to move forward with my goal with greater velocity? What's missing that would have me achieve my goal at a faster rate? Remember that it's not that type C goals are better than type A goals or type B goals. It's more that if we try on and we consider that the goal of a human being is in fact this expansion that I talk about, that it is type C goals, the ones that cause us to have to give up what we know, that will in fact cause us to have to expand and grow beyond who we know ourselves to be today. We're now going to talk about some of the things that I mentioned around mindset, Ways of being as a leader in your own life that will make your ability to be successful easier. So the first is less strategy, more actions. So for my planners in the house, those who want to have everything planned down to the last detail, that was me, by the way, for much of my life. I invite you to consider that part of what's going to happen over the time as you grow and evolve is your goal may shift, or, you know, like some things may shift. The approach that you take to achieve the goal is going to stay the same. But the approach that you take to achieve the goal may change based on your growth and expansion as you move closer towards the goal that you're looking to achieve. So less strategy, more action. Start listening to your intuition. Give up the how. Consider that the how is none of your business. We don't need to see the entire staircase, as Martin Luther King said. We don't need to see the entire staircase. We just need to know what the next action is to take now. You want to get emotionally attached or enrolled in what your life is going to be like once the goal is achieved. Allow yourself to create the vision for what that would look like. The other thing is to share. So it takes a village to really create the most abundant of life. And everything in life is in fact a matter. You could try on that everything in life is a matter of enrollment and registration. Any time, whether you're asking someone to go on a date with you or trying to make a sale or asking your children to help with chores around the house, asking for support, getting your business off the ground, for the entrepreneurs in here, that you're always trying to enroll people in what it is that you're creating and then register their support. And all of this is a function of sharing. It takes sharing ourselves and our commitments and what's important to us in order to be able to create what we want in life. You can inquire, where has needing to know the how stopped you from declaring what you authentically desire in life? Where has needing to know the how stopped you from authentically declaring what your heart truly desires and wants? I talk often about the importance of being a leader in your own life. Leadership, in my view, is not something that's bestowed based on title. Leaderships are ways of being and acting. Leaders pursue what matters to them and to others. They are accountable to themselves and others for their goals, for what's important, and they're willing to be responsible for everything, regardless of whether or not they necessarily caused the circumstance or the outcome. Leaders are responsible for what works and what doesn't work. Leaders inspire trustworthiness in themselves and in others. They operate in life with a certain level of integrity, not just around the things that they say that they're going to do, but more importantly, around who they be in life. Being a leader in life looks like having the appropriate amount of organization and time management for you and what you're up to. I believe, based on my experience, that the bigger the games you get up to in life, the more structure you need, the more supports you need to be able to organize and cause the results that you want. And leaders are adaptable. They don't become attached to the way things should look. They're willing to be flexible and in the discovery of how best to achieve the things that are important to them. So you could ask yourself, where could you level up your leadership in your own life? Is it your ability to be a leader for yourself or for leading others? I want to take a moment to talk about accountability. Consider that human beings relate to communication and conversations like objects in life, like things. But really, conversations get created in a moment and then disappear, including the commitments that we make to ourselves and the others. And if you look at your life as lived, the conversations, the goals, the things that get fulfilled on are the ones in which the conversation gets kept alive through other people and through yourself. Which is why accountability is so important, because accountability keeps our conversations alive. That could be through alarms that you set for important calls or events, or promises that you make to yourself. It could be through using a buddy, hiring a coach, whatever works, whatever, participating in different programs that are out there. I run an accountability club at 6 o'clock in the morning for people who are wanting to get up and get their days started powerfully. There are lots of structures out there to keep your commitments to yourself alive. Sorry about that. Accountability is our insurance against failure, and it accelerates our results. So ask yourself, where is accountability missing around achieving your goals? Where is accountability missing around achieving your goals? So right now, you want to take some time to look at what are the next actions that you're going to take inside of achieving your goals. It could be asking for support or help. It could be building accountability where there is none today. It could be creating partnership. And I invite you to take on more and more listening to your gut, trusting your intuition about, you'll hear. Messages will get repeated to you through other people. Events will keep coming up over and over again in your life. Synchronicities. Consider that everything in life there are messages to be found everywhere in life. And remember that our minds are extraordinarily powerful machines. And that our brain, our mind is working all the time, regardless of whether we are awake or not. So if you have something that you're particularly stuck on or you're not sure the action to take, ask for guidance as you go to sleep at night. Your subconscious, you will often find you wake up in the morning with answers. Let your mind work overnight. An action that you could take now that you've got a clearly defined goal, we have a free webinar that I delivered that's on YouTube called The Building Blocks for Success. It talks about a framework that you can use in order to achieve your goals more quickly. And for those of you that are interested, there'll be another webinar coming up in August where I talk about what to do when you get stuck, as we all do. So I give you a powerful framework for getting unstuck in life. You can find information about that on our website. So if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to take them now. But before we do that, I just really want to, and I'll come back to questions in a moment, for those of you that participated in the webinar either live or who are watching this after the fact on demand, I just really want to thank you for spending. I know your time is extremely valuable. There are lots of things that you could be doing. I hope you walked away from this hour with value, with an opening to take new actions or to see things newly. And I just really want to acknowledge you for being people who are committed to your own growth and development. And just thank you for being here. Was there any questions that anyone had? So the questions is, how do you discover what goal is really worthy? Well, it's such a great question. So I don't think anyone else can tell you what a worthy goal is. I've given you a framework to inquire into, ask them questions. But I think whether a goal is worthy or not is based on how that goal makes you feel. Your experience of yourself in the pursuit of achieving that goal. Does it enliven and excite you? Does the goal cause you to expand who you know yourself to be? Some people might look at my goals and say they're not big enough. Other people might look at my goals and say they're too big. That is up to people's individual perception. So whether your goals are worthy or not is not about meeting some external standard for worthiness. It's about meeting your own internal standard for what is going to have you live a life that you love. Such a great question. Another question we got is, any strategy that I recommend, being in nature, meditating, travel for inspiration? Well, I think it's important to give ourselves time. We live, for those of us and for those of you that are watching in North America, and as I get out further into the world, I'm learning about other kind of definitions of success. But we live in, at least in North America and Canada and the United States, inside of a conversation that what it is to be successful is to achieve more and more and more. And although I'm not saying that there's something wrong with that definition of success, it does create an environment that in order to keep being successful, we must keep achieving more. And because for so many of us as human beings, our concept of worth, self-worth, is tied into whether we determine we're successful or not as human beings, I believe that that definition of success is the one in which we are constantly setting ourselves up to feel like we're failing. So the strategy I would recommend is starting with, like, what is a life that would make you feel successful and happy? What is it that you really want to be doing with your life? You could start by doing a desire assessment. This is from one of my mentors. Carry around or in your phone a little notepad, and any activity that you're doing, rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. How much desire, how much pleasure does that activity give you? You'll start to get a sense of whether you're deriving a lot of satisfaction and joy and pleasure out of the things that you're doing in life. And then when you notice the things that you do that do bring you a lot of pleasure, and you really do find joy and happiness in doing those things and having those experiences, you could then start to say, well, how could I create a life that gives me more of this and less of the things that I'm doing that don't bring me joy and happiness? More time spent in reflection, which kind of flies in the face of our definitions of success being achieving more. Taking the time to slow down and really ask yourself those questions, not from a place of what it would look like to please other people or meet other people's standards, but from what it would look like for your own. Well, we've come to the end of our time together for this evening. Again, I'm just gonna reiterate because I love acknowledgement. I think acknowledgement is really powerful. So thank you so much for being here. If anyone has any questions or would like to have any follow-up conversations with me about any of the things that you've heard about in this webinar, please feel free to reach out to me at info@amberhowardinc.com. And just really, again, acknowledge you for your commitment to your own growth, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much.